Jing Yuan's rerun is about a week away, and I know many players like myself are probably a lot more focused on Sparkle's release at the same time, but our general is still a great character that people really just shouldn't glance over. So today, I'm going to go over Jing Yuan's rerun banner, his kit, and just how much value he can provide to you if you pull for him to show that he is, he still has some worth to him, and his rerun can definitely be beneficial to a lot of players. So starting out with his rerun banner, I think overall, while the characters on it are all solid, it may not be the best banner for Jing Yuan specifically. So firstly, we have Sampo, and Sampo is going to be an amazing damage over time character. He has been ever since Kafka came out, but because of Jing Yuan not doing anything with Dot, and Sampo really only being in that kind of role, you're not going to see them really be ran too much together. So if you're looking for teammates to boost up your Jing Yuan or make him perform even better, Sampo is not going to be able to do that. Next up, we have Qingque, who I think is an amazing DPS character with Eidolons, once you get her like E4 or higher. But because she's a DPS and just the nature of her kit, she also is not going to provide any synergy with Jing Yuan. But if you do pull a good amount of copies of her, I can definitely see you running her on a second team if you are looking for that as well. So there's like a little bit of value for Qingque, but when it comes to pairing with Jing Yuan, it's not really there. But then lastly, we have a glimmer of hope for Jing Yuan. We have Hanya, who is an amazing support character that I think goes a little bit undervalued in comparison to all of the super crazy Harmony characters. And I do think that Hanya's attack and speed buff from her ultimate are going to help Jing Yuan out a lot, as well as her being able to restore skill points with her burden effect. And that's going to come really, very much in handy when we look at Jing Yuan's kit here, which we're going to go into right now, because his kit, you pretty much want to use your skill all the time, as we can see here from his basic attack, which is just that he deals lightning damage to a single enemy. And as an erudition character, for one, that's just not what you want to be doing. But then secondly, as we're going to see in his skill, there's so much more value there as opposed to just using the basic attack. So for Jing Yuan's skill, he's going to deal lightning damage to all enemies, and by using his skill, his Lightning Lord will get 2 more hits per action for its next attack. And this is really good because that Lightning Lord, as we'll get to when we go to his talent, is where the bulk of Jing Yuan's damage is going to be from. So it definitely is really good to utilize the Lightning Lord and get as many hits per action as possible. Then for Jing Yuan's ultimate, you're going to deal lightning damage to all enemies, and you will increase the hits per action for the Lightning Lord by 3 this time. So his ultimate giving a bit bigger of a boost for hits per action while still doing a very solid amount of damage. Then for the, actually I'll do the technique first, because the talent is it's a bit of a mouthful because it explains everything about the Lightning Lord. So for the technique, after you use the technique, the first attack of the Lightning Lord has an extra 3 hits per action. So when you start the battle, you will have 3 more than you usually will. So now for the talent, it's a whole paragraph over here. So you summon the Lightning Lord at the start of battle, and he's on the action order. He starts out with 60 base speed and 3 hits per action at base. So with the technique, you'd be up at 6 at the start of battle. So whenever the Lightning Lord takes action, his attacks are follow-up attacks, which is really nice. And it'll deal damage equal to a percentage of Jing Yuan's attack to a random single enemy, and enemies adjacent to that enemy will also take lightning damage. So you do end up dealing a lot of damage when there are multiple enemies on the field as well. And the max hits per action for the Lightning Lord is 10. So you definitely do want to try to hit this as much as possible, but I will, once we get past the kit, I will talk about this a bit more, because let's just say this isn't the most consistent thing ever in a lot of situations. So every time the Lightning Lord gets his hits per action increased, he'll get a speed increase of 10, which will move him up with the action order, which is also an important thing to note. And then when the Lightning Lord does his attacks, the speed and hits per action will return to their original values, which was the 60 speed and 3 hits per action here. And yeah, as usual with summons and that kind of stuff, when Jing Yuan's not is KO'd, the Lightning Lord will disappear. But the big thing, which is one of the big things that people don't like about Jing Yuan, which I can definitely see why, when Jing Yuan is affected by crowd control debuffs, the Lightning Lord is unable to take action. So that's something I'll get into a bit more later, but it's also why a lot of people soured on Jing Yuan prior to Pure Fiction coming out and some other characters coming out to help him. But now let's get to his major traces here, which I think they all are relatively helpful. So his first one here makes it so that when you have 6 or more hits per action on the Lightning Lord, when it attacks, it'll have 25% extra crit damage, which is really solid. His second one here gives 15 energy at the start of battle, which would be great to get your ultimate a little faster for him. And then his last major trait, War Marshal here, after he uses his skill, he gets 10% crit rate for 2 turns, which is definitely going to make it a little easier to, I think, build him, because you won't need to get as much crit rate to be consistent, but you still are going to want to build a good amount on him. The overall very solid kit here. He also does get some attack and crit rate from his traces, which is really nice, because that is just going to benefit him a lot. So now I want to talk about, is he going to be worth it for your account? And I do think this is a very interesting thing for Jing Yuan, just because I think there's a lot of pros and cons depending on the account you have and what you're looking for. Because when it comes to damage potential, he's definitely not going to be on the level of the top tier DPS characters like Jing Liu and Baiwader Lune. The Dot team is also insanely good now with Black Swan and Kafka. Definitely not, I don't think he's not going to be on that level of damage, but I do think that he is going to have his value in certain parts of the game. Like, he could definitely get through Memory of Chaos, but I think he really will truly shine most of the time in Pure Fiction, because his skill does hit every enemy, which is going to be very good. And of course, the Pure Fiction buff will also, depending on what it is, could help him even more. So yeah, he could definitely be worth it if you are looking for a damage dealer. But now I kind of want to dive more into the what I mentioned before about his Lightning Lord. So his Lightning Lord has 2 big inconsistencies that I feel like it's really important for people who are using Jing Yuan to know about, because it is really important for you to be able to either play around them or use characters that can make these inconsistencies not as bad for you. So the 2 main inconsistencies that he has is, firstly, getting the Lightning Lord to 10 stacks in the first place for the hits per action, and that's only because every time you get an extra hit per action, the Lightning Lord speeds up. So you do have to have enough speed on your Jing Yuan to be able to get as many skills off as possible, and try to keep up with what the Lightning Lord is doing, and also making sure that you can try ult as much as possible, which is why you'll want to run support characters like Bronya could be solid. I do think Ting Yun is still his best. It's still probably his best support. Either Ting Yun or Ruan Mei, I think, will probably be Jing Yuan's best support. Because not only are they going to be really solid for keeping skill points for Jing Yuan, but also for Ting Yun specifically, she is going to be able to give him a lot of energy, which is going to be good for getting his ultimate up, which means more hits per action for the Lightning Lord. And then his other inconsistency are the crowd control debuffs that I mentioned before, which it really does make things a lot harder when Jing Yuan is not able to do his Lightning Lord attacks, because if you get crowd control debuffed and he gets pushed behind his Lightning Lord, that Lightning Lord attack is just not going to happen if you don't have a way to get rid of the crowd control debuffs. And of course, you can cleanse it, with pretty much any cleanser in the game, but I do think the 2 characters that have had the most impact on dealing with this have probably been Fu Xuan with her crowd control resistance on her skill, and then also Huo Huo with the pretty much like automatic cleanse, which could be nice, but again, that still focuses your attention on, is Jing Yuan going to be before or after the Lightning Lord when he gets crowd controlled. So it definitely is important to keep in mind there. So you are going to have some inconsistencies, but if you have certain characters you're using certain comps, you might not have as much of an issue with them. So I think that is something that's super important to keep in mind. And the last thing that I want you all to keep in mind as well, if you're thinking about pulling Jing Yuan, is also like, I mean, for one, if you really like Jing Yuan and want to pull him, that's great. But also do note that for one, if you're using Kafka, you might not need another lightning DPS character. So so Jing Yuan might just not have as much value for you. But then also we do have Acheron coming in 2.1, who is also another lightning DPS character, or assuming so, we're gonna see her being a DPS. We don't have any official info on her too much yet, but Acheron will probably be a DPS character. So that's another character who definitely has the potential to make Jing Yuan not look as good, especially if you're planning on pulling for her. But if you do still want to pull for Jing Yuan, I still think he's going to be a very solid damage dealer, and I do think that he's going to be beneficial throughout the game, regardless of what modes and what kind of fights he's in. I think he's going to be very solid. So let me know in the comments down below if you are going to be pulling for Jing Yuan and what you think of him. But with that, everyone, I'm going to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, definitely be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. But with that, I will see you all next time.